Persona. Either you have no idea what I'm talking about, or you've already sunk dozens of hours into the latest entry. Either way, it's a franchise that's always been on the precipice of mainstream success, and after a nearly decade-long absence, Atlus has finally released its sequel. So, is it worth it? Let's find out. The advantage of youth is its simplicity. Though personal troubles still result in conflicting emotions, there's a clear divide between right and wrong. But growing up introduces a new web of complex moral issues, where, regardless of preference, compromises to long-held beliefs often occur. So far, Persona 5 doesn't represent this transition, but rather the contrast between idealistic adolescence and the potential corruption of adulthood. Specifically, the subconscious rationale that whittles away principles, enabling seemingly normal people to exploit and harm those beneath them. This exploration of seedy minds might sound like a dour experience, but Persona 5 is anything but glum. Thanks to a catchy soundtrack, rich artistic direction, thoughtfully paced story, and compelling turn-based combat, Persona 5 is an enthralling blend of teen soap operas and role-playing games. In the bustling streets of Tokyo, a young man is looking for a second chance. After being convicted of assault and expelled from school, he is forced to start a new life far from home. However, word of his prior incident follows him, ostracizing him from society. But one strange morning, he accidentally steps into the metaverse, an alternative dimension where the fears and desires of humans manifest into elaborate structures and dangerous creatures. Unable to escape this twisted world, he awakens the power known as Persona, granting him the ability to capture these monstrous illusions. Now joined by similarly abled outcasts, the gang form the Phantom Thieves and head deep into the mysterious palaces. But as their adventures gain public notoriety and support, shadowy figures begin seeking out their true identities. Now they'll need to stay one step ahead of their pursuers to change the world one heart at a time. With a nearly 100-hour campaign, Persona 5's relaxed storytelling can seem sluggish, especially during its first arc. But this meandering pace intentionally puts players in the role of an average high school student, with all the annoyances of early morning commutes and pop quizzes. Even when the more fanciful elements are introduced, the plot inevitably returns to the mundane reality. However, this helps establish the feeling of a double life, as the crew break free from their social standings into full-fledged superheroes, facing off against the abstract creatures contained within the ballooning egos of sociopaths. But much like a classic comic book, these outrageous events always relate to the character's core development, influencing their real-world circumstances and moods. Whether battling inner demons or catching up in text messages, each moment slowly introduces the team's unique personalities and backgrounds. And as the characters' friendships solidify, the audience becomes equally invested in their risky escapades. It's a slow burn to be sure, but Persona 5's steady exposition successfully balances a magical crime caper with charming yet relatable teenage characters, even if one of them happens to be a talking cat. This focus on relationships also extends to the gameplay. Once past the lengthy introduction, players are free to decide how their character spends his time. From afternoon workouts to wilderness hikes, each hangout session further cements their bond while also increasing their control over certain personas. Outside of a few select activities, these sections are fairly light in interaction, with players only occasionally responding to character statements. But the gradual increase in stats does provide an important upper hand in the metaverse. Persona 5's dungeon crawling and combat don't stray too far away from the traditions of a Japanese role-playing game, but the twists introduced here really sell the concept of a psychological burglary. Despite being imaginary, the palaces are packed with patrolling guards ready to vanquish unwelcome guests, requiring the Phantom Thieves to stealthily dash behind objects before pouncing for an attack. Successful ambushes offer players an edge in battle, with the team given first strike, while enemy encounters flip the advantage in their favor, leaving the thieves defenseless. These shifts in turns can drastically alter the party's status, as each member can quickly be taken down. Exploration essentially boils down to a game of cat and mouse with walking patterns, but this does reinforce a sense of danger while cautiously navigating the vast labyrinths. However, the turn-based combat is where strategies really open up. While basic physical strikes and blocks are still a viable option, most of Persona's conflicts revolve around elemental magic attacks and firearms. Each enemy can be immediately disarmed by executing their specific weakness, granting the character an extra move. If all opponents are knocked down, the team can engage in a robbery-style holdup, unlocking extra items, money, or even capturing new personas through text-based negotiations. If that sounds complicated, it is, but the previously mentioned slow pace gradually eases players into the myriad of systems, seamlessly giving instructions during story events and conversations. Dozens of hours later, encounters remain suspenseful as weaknesses are discovered and allies are collected. But Persona 5's allure comes in the merger of these two seemingly unrelated gameplay styles. With limited resources and gigantic environments, the team will need to frequently bounce between the real world and the metaverse to restock their weapons and supplies. Problem is, there's still school in the morning. That's right, every session creates a passage of time, forcing the students to balance their studies, social life, and otherworldly heists. And with a limited number of days before the robbery fails, properly managing your schedule is a game in and of itself. This is a game about urgency and patience, freedom in restraint, and power with limitations. Yes, these are contradictions, but this strongly resembles the teenage experience, when youthful ambitions are held back by cultural expectations. Just as the daily grind becomes tedious, the crew escape into a heroic journey as they close in on their prized treasure. And once the chaos overwhelms the team, they return to the calming structure of homework and curfews. Persona is a full role-playing experience, not only in battles and strategy, but also in maintaining friendships, study habits, and personal time. Once it settles into its groove, it's hard to turn away, especially when it looks this stylish. Everything from post-battle celebrations, text blocks animations, and even loading screens pop with vibrant artistry. There's an energetic spirit coursing through every monster and human design, immediately communicating their internal nature. But it's the incredible color palette that breathes life into each object and location. Though the environments themselves, while elaborate in detail, are undeniably squarish. Which makes sense given the stealth mechanics, but the constant appearance of hard corners is a bit disappointing. Audio is equally impressive, with an effective mood-setting soundtrack. The songs themselves are fairly low-key, which allows the jazzy rock to pepper each scene without becoming repetitive. The English voice cast does a fantastic job of delivering the Japanese cultural references. This is thanks to the considerate localization, with a matter-of-fact tone that never talks down to its audience. So, is it worth it? Yes. There's nothing else quite like Persona 5. At times, it's a magical battle between good and evil, before smoothly transitioning back into a grounded high school tale. It's through this unusual method that this strange odyssey becomes more than accumulating new levels and weapons. That's not to undermine the sublime combat and customization, which remain consistently fresh in my 25-hour playthrough. But it's the emerging friendships and relationships that drew me in, and always eager to return. Persona 5 is currently available on the PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 3. If you've had a chance to play it, let me know what you thought. And if you haven't, let me know if you plan on picking it up. My name is Colin Tanner, and I'll see you in the next video.